Hey guys, Seeney here, and today we're talking about some tips to help you make a great music video. So the most important thing to remember when you're making a music video is that a music video is basically a promotional tool for an artist. They're going to take that video and they're going to send it to venues to book more gigs, they're going to send it to labels to potentially get signed, and any other thing that you need to do in the music industry. You'll use a music video to help promote what you're doing. So it's really important that you present the artist in the best possible light that you can. Having a great music video will help immensely when it comes to booking festival slots and gigs and anything like that. It's really important to have good visuals. Now, because a music video is basically a promotional tool for an artist, it's really important that you get the person watching the video to stick around and watch it as long as possible, if not all the way to the end. So for that to happen, you need to make it really engaging. And now there's a few different ways that you can make it engaging, so we're going to start with the first one now. Now the first one that might seem really obvious, but it's actually one of the hardest to do effectively, is to create a great storyline. Now a great story always has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's important that you choose a story that matches what's happening with the lyrics and is going to encapsulate the viewer. It needs to be something that you can really fit into the song. Now it doesn't always have to be the same as the song and the literal meaning of the lyrics, but sometimes it's good to take a little bit of artistic leeway and maybe touch on a few of the lyrics here and there and then launch pad into a story from there. Now in music videos you only have about 3 to 4 minutes to put your point forward and get a great story along mixed with other band shots. So it's not something that you want to have really complicated. Sometimes some easy stories are the most effective because that's what people can relate to as well. It is of course really hard to have a very intricate storyline within 3 to 4 minutes, and a lot of viewers will kind of miss what's going on if they're not watching intently. So sometimes the easy stories are the best. So when I say easy, I don't mean boring. I mean, it needs to be a really simple story, but it still needs to be very engaging so the viewer is really fixed on what's happening in that story so they can't look away, otherwise they're gonna miss it. So that's the first tip, is great storytelling. So that's probably the most important thing more than anything else. So when you're shooting a music video, it's really important to take the time to plan out the story and exactly what you're doing. So yes, story is really important, but something else that's also really important when you're shooting music videos is to get great visuals. What's happening on the screen needs to look really nice and really engaging for the viewer to watch. So this can be done so many different ways. You can do this through lighting, you can do this through the time of day that you shoot, you can choose an interesting background, and that might be the way to go. But there's so many different ways to make what's happening on the screen really appealing. Now because there's so many different ways, it of course can be really complicated to do that too. So there's a few things that I stick to when I'm shooting a music video. If I have outdoor scenes that rely on the sun as a light source, I'm either shooting at sunrise or sunset. So an hour before sunset or the hour after sunrise, and that's when you get the most flat and nice colors. Especially sunset, you'll get a really golden glow across your footage, which looks really good. Shooting in the middle of the day can be quite difficult because the sun is really harsh and it comes right down on top of people's heads, and that can create some really weird shadows and really tough shadows. So you want to try and shoot when the light is as flat as possible. Now that might be the hour after sunrise or the hour before sunset. Of course you get great colors that go along with that too, but if I'm shooting outside, those are the times that I shoot because that will get you the best results. Now to take advantage of those really nice colors, when I'm shooting on the camera, I make sure that I'm shooting in a really flat profile, something like a log profile, and that allows me to manipulate the image and really bring out those nice colors that you get in something like a sunset. So color grading is super important when you're shooting a music video. Now that's a completely different topic onto itself, but it's something you might want to look into. There's a lot of great LUTs online, which are lookup tables which you can apply to your footage, and that can create some really nice colors and feels and looks that have been created already. But you can also grade your own footage and that'll create a unique look to you as well. Now when I'm shooting music videos, I tend to shoot a lot of the story in slow motion. Now the reason for that is I think that slow motion tends to really give it a much more cinematic look than 25 frames a second or normal time. I think it really helps the viewer to digest the moment that's happening on screen when it's in slow motion. They have a bit more time to kind of process that particular moment as opposed to just shooting in normal time and everything sort of going and going and going. But of course that does depend on the style of the clip. If it's a really high energy clip, then you probably do want to be shooting some of your story in 25 frames a second, so there's a bit more intensity. But because I do a lot of country clips and things are a little bit more laid back, I find it's much more about getting the viewer into the moment. So shooting in slow motion is a really effective way for me to do that. And of course, if it ends up being too slow, I can always speed that up. But if I'm shooting 25, I can't go and slow that down. And if you do, it does take a lot of difficulty. Another thing that's really important is to keep your cuts interesting. So you don't just want to be changing every single beat to a new shot. Sometimes you might want to drag one clip out a little bit longer and then have a few short ones so it's not so monotonous and things change up a little bit, and that'll keep the viewer really interested in watching because they're not sure when the next cut's going to be, what the next shot's going to be. So that's one thing that's really important to do. Now, if you want really cinematic music videos that look really professional, it's very, very important that you use some kind of stabilization. Now, I've spoken about this before. For my stabilization, I have in-body stabilization in the GH5, which I'm shooting on, and also lens stabilization in the optics, and also I shoot on a gimbal. So there's 3 different points of stabilization, which gives me a really smooth, gliding cinematic shot. If it's kind of shaking around everywhere, you're not going to get a cinematic look. Now, sometimes a bit of camera shake might be really desirable for the kind of music video, especially if it's a little bit more intense. But if you're shooting something that's laid back, you probably want smooth cinematic shots. Okay, so another thing that I think is really important to shooting a great music video is to make sure that you overshoot. You want to make sure you have way more than enough footage than not enough. Otherwise, you might have to end up reusing a little bit and it's not going to look as good. So you definitely want to make sure that you have way more than enough footage. And if you have way more than enough, that means that you can choose the absolute gold to put in there. And probably the last tip, which is something that will definitely happen over time, is that you need to develop your own style. So when someone sees a clip from an artist and they're kind of familiar with directors, they go, oh, well, that's this director, and that's this director. And there's certain things which you'll learn and techniques that you'll use quite constantly, which will kind of lead the viewer to think, okay, well that's what they're doing. That must be their video because they're using techniques like this. Now, this is something I'm starting to develop myself. I spend a lot of time shooting into the sun with really cool lens flares, and I've found that that's something that I really enjoy doing, and it gives me great results on video. So that's something that I've started to develop in a lot of my videos, is to use the sun effectively outside. So it's really, really important to develop your own unique style, because when someone's watching a video and they go, I really like the look of that video, I want a video just like that, and they see that you shoot it, you've developed a style, and the only way for them to get that really close to that initial video is to go with you. So you're creating something that is invaluable, that they can't get anywhere else. Now, of course, there's so many awesome music directors and they all have their own unique styles, but what people do is they buy into particular clips and they buy into particular people. So it's really important to have that unique style that you do and no one else is really doing. Now, this will take time to develop. It's not going to happen straight away. You'll learn as you go, and you'll find that certain things work for you and other things don't, and then you'll kind of focus on the things that really do. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found some of these tips useful. There's certainly some things that have helped me with shooting music videos and getting them onto TV and getting them to do really well online. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Seeney. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you later.